Welcome to Adspeak, Adweek's podcast about the business of marketing, media, and creativity. In this episode, we're sharing a conversation recorded live at one of Adweek's events, featuring leaders from across the industry discussing the ideas shaping brands right now. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Jenny Rooney with Adweek, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Josh Dean. He's a very good friend. We were just tracing back our history. I think we've known each other since 2018, thereabouts. He's done some extraordinary things in his career, and he's been at Diageo, heading up Johnnie Walker and Buchanan's for, you said,
2.5 years?
Yeah.
Like
so, and look, we're going to kind of unpack what he's been doing in leadership of that brand to keep Johnnie Walker relevant in a really impactful way. So, Josh, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jenny.
Why don't you kick it off? Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your story and what got you to this place, about your walk, your journey, and then we'll dive into what you're doing at Johnnie Walker right now.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here with you all. When I started my journey in marketing, I was fortunate enough to spend the first 10 years at Unilever. And from a very early time in that tenure, not only did I get to work with amazing leaders at the time, but it really taught me a couple of things that I would say stayed thematic during my walk. The first one is the power of creativity, not just in the narrowest sense, from advertising, we've done all that, but just the power of creativity to unlock teams and to unlock marketing as a function to really drive long-term sustainable growth. And we'll touch on that as we go through. The second piece is I'm passionate about brand purpose, about missions, and about humanity. And that has also been a guiding light for me, during my career. And I've been fortunate enough to be at Unilever. I then went into the startup world with Tommy John and with Swell. I then had my own brand building consultancy and partnered with lots of startups in B2B and B2C. And then I got lured back into the world of spirits with what was essentially a dream job for me, having the privilege and responsibility of leading this amazing brand into its next chapter.
And so I just want to underscore, Unilever, but also those Tommy John and Swell brands. You've really seen it all. And I think it's so interesting that you consistently still view creativity as the ultimate. By the way, at a time when AI is disrupting everything, and the fact that you still believe in the power of creativity and really driving brand resonance, we're going to get into that for sure. Yeah. So a year ago, I actually had the pleasure of visiting Diageo's offices in New York for a special event where they celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Keep Walking tagline for Johnnie Walker, which was really a momentous occasion. Talk a little bit about that, why that was so pivotal for you guys. Obviously, it's such an iconic brand, but that's become an iconic campaign as well.
Yeah, and I'll come on to that. I just want to sort of double click a little bit back into Johnnie Walker. This is a 205-year-old brand. It is the world's leading Scotch brand globally. It's the number one Scotch in the US. But it was also, not many people know this, but John Walker was the original rule breaker of whiskey. He was the first man to blend whiskeys together and have what we now know as Johnnie Walker. He was the first man to put a whiskey in a square bottle so that it could travel easily on ships. So that in 1920, Johnnie Walker was in 120 countries, more than Coke at the time. Wow. It had a slanting label that it continued to this day. So the reason I say that is, this is, a heritage brand, but we think about it as a brand with heritage rather than something that's hold us back. And I think that's really important for us because the product truth, and we'll get to that when we talk in some of the collaborations, it is really key, and you'll see how that comes to life. But this is also a brand that's always been driving forward. We had a striding man you see here, and on my lapel. Yeah. And that striding man is walking forward. And then to Jenny's point, Keep Walking started in a very different time, 1999. So for those of you who are of that age, I think it was the era of MySpace. It was pre-Facebook. I think mobile phones were just coming online. And it was a very different time. But when we launched it, it very quickly became this rallying cry around progress. And it was very different from the whiskey world at the time, which was sort of more stereotypical sort of, guy sitting on a leather chair in front of a fire enjoying a single malt. I won't name brands that continue to do that. There are many, but we do it slightly differently. But it was at the time really transformational because we turned it into this rallying cry that became synonymous with how we view the world, how Johnnie Walker views the world. And it really has remained our North Star and our guide in terms of the collaborations, how we show up in culture, how we show up with our innovations. And it's the most iconic iconic tagline in the whole of spirits. Jenny and I was talking about it. Nike is probably the one that we look at as being the other sort of amazing line in the world of marketing. And both of those lines, the key thing is you can't stand still. You constantly need to reinvent what it means. And the beauty of these two words is that you can reinvent what it means. So we'll play you a little sizzle just so you can see kind of the journey over the last 25 years.
So, it's there's so much about that's aspirational, inspirational, and it's more of a feeling, right? And it's also there are guardrails, but it's also very flexible. So to your point, the ability for you to continue to innovate and make sure you're on point with that messaging and that positioning, yet stretch that's the balancing act, right? That's the challenge. So talk a little bit about how you've thought about this culture first piece, which, by the way, is not an easy thing to do. I mean, we see a lot of brands trying to figure out how to make that happen. What does culture first mean for Johnnie Walker? Let's just start there foundationally.
Yeah. And it, on the one hand, to your point, on the one hand, it's quite simple. On the other hand, it's really hard to do well. Yeah. So, I think we're very clear that we don't borrow from culture. We're not led by culture. We identify and collaborate with the sort of individuals and or partners that are shaping culture. And that is very intentional because, as you said, there's a lot of brands that sort of, try and borrow and it falls flat. There's a lot of brands that go on their own without sort of any understanding of the nuances on what it means to show up consistently well in culture. And I think there is another piece here, which is, I talked about brand purpose, and that being a big driver for me and obviously this brand. The brand purpose is the why, right? Creativity often is the how. But when you connect that in culture, that's when you turn up from sort of showing yourself in culture to making consumers feel your brand. And I think that is the key thing. It has to evoke a feeling. Yeah. It has to evoke something that sticks with them, that, obviously draws conversation, and we measure that too. There's a feeling there, and that's the thing that we tap into.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I saw the product in that sizzle.
It was there a little bit,
but it wasn't very obvious. It
Right.
wasn't the
Yeah.
it wasn't the star of the show. So talk strategically about why that's the case against the backdrop of what you just said.
Yeah, because, keep walking is a mantra, right? And it connects to different people in different ways. And we spent a lot of time over the last 25 years building what in Diageo, we would call, key brand attributes around keep walking, because it's keep walking and Johnnie Walker that drive meaning for this brand. And meaning allows us to be differentiated. It allows distinctivity. It allows us to price. It's all of the kind of elements of marketing that are through this key brand asset that we have. And, we do show the product, but it is, to your point, all around how we show up with keep walking and show up consistently in different ways in culture with the right partners.
So obviously, I mean, you have to go through, you vet all of the cultural spaces in which you could show up: music, sport, fashion, entertainment. And doing all of that, doing that exercise, ultimately, it's to attract younger drinkers. I mean, this is the whole point here is to expand your market, even as you're trying to retain your core customer, your loyalists who have been with you for so many years. So, again, a balancing act. This is a consistent thread here. But how do you go through that process of looking across the landscape of all those things I just said to choose where you dip in? And then we're going to get into the specifics of what you have done to meet that goal.
Yeah. So if, I look at, and we'll go into more detail here, like when we take a step back and we say, right, our North Star is keep walking. We are a brand that's all about progress. So we will partner with voices, individuals, partners that embody the spirit of progress in their respective fields. So that's our North Star. And then when we click in and we click into entertainment, it's about, okay, how do we think about where our consumer base, current and future, are currently enjoying, entertainment, and what are the right shows that we could partner with that embody some degree of spirit about sort of pushing forward in the world of entertainment. And we also have, a history of that. We're a 200-year-old brand, but we did a great partnership with Game of Thrones. And that gave us some confidence too, to know that when we show up well and we really think about the detail, we can do that.
Everybody remember White Walker?
Everyone remember White Walker?
Yeah, Game of Thrones fans. Yeah.
And then when it comes to sport, again, Johnnie Walker has a steep history in sport and in golf. But really, in addition to just the sport itself, it's the community and the progressive community that we connect with around sport. And that's why we decided to go back into golf. And then music, we all know, is the biggest sort of cultural space, right? And again, Johnnie Walker has a history in music, both in terms of kind of partners that we've had in the past or currently, but it's about identifying with that artist that is it really embodies pushing their field, their genre, the world of music forward. And who better than Sabrina to do that? So,
well, we're gonna unpack. So real quick, so as you just laid that groundwork, I'm gonna go through 4 things that are examples of this. So Netflix and Squid Game, Vault and Olivier Rousteing, Evro golf collaboration, and yes, Sabrina Carpenter. So why don't we go through each one real quick, say a few words. So Squid Game, why was that the right partnership?
So Squid Game this was the number one show in Netflix, right? History. I think it had 250 million viewers. Everyone watched it in COVID. Hands up, yes. Oh, not that many. So it was the number one show for Netflix of all time. Just to give you a sense of scale, it's 5 times, I think, bigger than Game of Thrones in the US. So this was the show.
Yeah.
And it came back, and there was tremendous excitement about it coming back. And Netflix have been, really great partners to Diageo and also to Johnnie Walker. So the teams came together and it was a real collaboration. But we really wanted to understand what was going to happen in this next season of Squid Games. And it was all about the players. And then we asked ourselves, well, how could we integrate the product into that? So we designed this limited edition bottle. There were 456 different designs. So each bottle had a different number on it. And that was all around the collectability around this too. So you could pick your player, and that became something really sort of powerful. And then we didn't stop there. We really started to think about how did we show up, on the ground? How would we create different serves around this that really allowed consumers to enjoy the Squid Game experience? Our Squid Game experience is in New York, in LA, and we built bars there. So we were thinking about it from a sort of
Surround
sound perspective, but also making sure that there were little Easter eggs in there too for the diehard fans. So this is just a quick example of one of the things that we did.
Is that little Dicky?
So yeah, so it was a little Dicky shout out at the end. He's a huge fan of Squid Games. He does music around it too. But again, little Easter eggs that helped us along the way. And it was the most successful partnership that Netflix had in Squid Games with Johnnie Walker. And we got sort of top of the list of Gen Z, really leveraging it to your point. This is about bringing new consumers in that hadn't necessarily experienced Johnnie Walker in that way. And we're really proud of how that's shaped out.
So Evro Golf, you referenced earlier that you do have a history.
We have a long history in golf. Johnnie Walker was the first ever sponsor of the British Open back in the 1880s, I believe. And we did this sort of prize for if you got a hole in one too. And Scotch and golf is a thing, right? But then we actually walked away from it because we felt that it wasn't necessarily the most sort of progressives of sports. And I don't know how many of you have been following the rise of golf and tennis recently, but it's amazing to see kind of how it's evolving from a sport to a lifestyle. And I think that then made us say, well, we have a history in golf. We know that our sort of more tenured consumers love it, right? So we can talk to them, but we can also bring in sort of the next generation of golf. And we partnered with this great brand, Evro Golf, that are based out in Arizona. And we launched a lifestyle collection with them. So this was about how do we start thinking about golf in a different way, much more diverse, younger. The other thing that was opening up is all the third spaces around golf too. So Top Golf and lots of more opportunities and occasions to actually, drink Johnnie Walker and enjoy some golf too. So it was a really good fit. And then we went to waste management. We surrounded the Ryder Cup and we produced a lot of merch like this bit. That sold out very quickly. But it was just another example of a great partnership that felt right to the brand and to them, and that we could sort of build it together and create something that made consumers really fall in love with this Walker again.
Love it. Moving on to Olivier Rousteing.
Yes. So
Luxury fashion.
Okay. So this is this gives you a sense of like the breadth of this brand.
Yes.
Okay. As I said at the start, one of the product truths around Johnnie Walker is that it is this incredible blended whiskey, which allows us to draw from 10 million casks that Diageo own in Scotland. So we own half of the global Scotch supply, just to give you a sense of scale. And we have. So blending is in our DNA, but we're also, as I said, a progressive brand. So we want to continue to push the boundaries of what blending can be. And in 200 years, Johnnie Walker has been however many presidents, 45. I'm not going to. Let's go with 48 presidents or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Does anyone know how many master blenders there've been in Johnnie Walker in that time? 10. Less. 5. 6 master blenders, right? Our current master blender is this amazing woman called Emma Walker. Have you met her? No.
No.
And she is like, I mean, she's amazing, but she, when you're blending at her level, it's a bit of perfumery, it's a bit of science, and it's a sort of amazing concoction of these whiskeys. So earlier in this year, we launched the Johnnie Walker Vault. So our home is in Princess Street in Edinburgh. Has anyone ever been to Edinburgh? Great. You have a good time? Okay, good. So that is the home of Johnnie Walker. And at the bottom of our home of Johnnie Walker is a vault. It used to be a bank, so it's literally a vault. And we took 100 of the rarest whiskeys that you can ever find in our 10 million casks and put them in this vault. And that's Emma's playground. And she will build a unique whiskey based on your own story. And that's what we're calling the vault.
You need to get her to an Adweek.
What's that?
We need to
invite
her to an Adweek.
She's amazing.
That would be awesome.
So anyway, in order to launch this, we partnered with Olivier Rousteing. Like, Olivier Rousteing is the youngest and first Black creative director of Balmain, the fashion house. He is an amazing individual, a true creative. And so you put these two creatives together, and Emma basically worked with Olivier to create his own couture collection. And these are whiskeys that there was a very limited run, but they sell for $20,000 each, and we're sold out. And so this is a bit of the story of our high-end collaboration with Olivier. Oh, can you click to the next slide? Oh, there we go. There's Olivier. Yeah.
It's incredible. I think this project was all about creating something timeless. That's why I wanted to create with you this incredible bottle. This is our first sketch.
This is our original drawings of the liquids.
You actually showed me how to sketch better than I do.
We started thinking about the seasons. Could we do different liquids? I love that we really played with the flavours that people don't always expect in Scotch whiskies.
The fall one for me was clearly the freedom of being who you are, the freedom of exploring your heritage, your origins. The winter one to me is all about memories, like family together. Spring is about the best version of ourselves.
Yeah. The aromas, the textures, if you think about a cold spring day, you've got that sparkle in the air. And then the summer whiskey that we talked about, our discovery, you taste that tropical fruit.
I dream of an endless summer. Those wings, almost like touching the sky, And I think this is not anymore only whiskey, it's art. When the art of couture meets the art of blending.
So cool. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. And he also, so that's the vault there. Very hard to get to. But he also did, back to Keep Walking. Olivier was so inspired by Keep Walking because of his own journey. And he's had a very difficult journey himself and risen to these amazing ranks. But he interpreted Keep Walking as keep walking until you fly. And that's how he spoke about it too. And it was just so special to be part of that journey with him.
Love that. And then, of course, last but not least, you mentioned her earlier, Sabrina Carpenter.
Yes, here's Sabrina. Wow, where do we start? Okay, so, I mean, this really, as often sometimes is the case, came together quite quickly, actually. I was just saying to Jenny, like, we have been looking and thinking about how do we, constantly looking about music because it's such a big space, but we wanted to really be very choiceful about who we partnered with. So we turn a lot of things down, actually, because, there's a lot of spirits playing in whiskey. It's hard to find the right way to do it at the right time with the right partner.
Majority come to you?
A lot come to us.
Yeah.
Because, and we turn a lot down.
Yeah.
But Sabrina's team came to us and created this mood board, actually, of how she saw herself with Johnnie Walker. And it was almost like Johnnie Walker was her muse. And I don't know, I assume a lot of people have seen her new album. Yeah. Or heard her new album. So this is Sabrina growing up. And she felt like in order to grow up, Johnnie Walker was the brand that she wanted to grow up with. And that was just an immediate connection, because here is an artist at the peak of her sort of fame, and progressing in her own way, subverting, kind of pushing culture forward and partnering with us. And the other piece here, I keep coming back to collaboration. We partnered really closely with her creative team. This was a truly collaborative effort to produce this. And we wanted to do it. She wanted to do it. We wanted to do it to coincide with the launch of her album. So like when Man's Best Friend launched, we had out of home all around the world, Piccadilly Circus, New York, LA, Berlin, which was showing Johnnie Walker, Sabrina Carpenter, Man's Best Friend, with Black Label front and center too. And the response has been incredible. We got more than half of our annual impressions in one weekend.
Wow.
We drove talkability more than Heineken, sort of the leader in total beverage and alcohol that weekend. 95% of the consumers that came into Walker were new. And also, interestingly, even within the trade, people were talking, back to your point, in terms of some partnerships fall flat and some stay. The trade was saying this is a wonderful thing for whiskey to reinvent itself, and for Johnnie Walker. So yeah, it's been great.
So you brought up a great point when you said that Sabrina reached out to you all and that she had reached a moment in her career where she was maturing, in all of these partnerships, collaborations, Squid Game, Olivier, Rousteing, Deborah Golf, Sabrina, there is that flip, right? Those are brands. They're on a journey. They're looking to advance some aspect of who they are and how they show up. So it is very reciprocal.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the conversations that you have are around how do we both win in this arrangement.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand when you're partnering with any talent or other brand, it has to feel reciprocal. There has to feel a sort of a meeting of the minds and the hearts that can build both brands forward, because otherwise it can feel disingenuous or fall flat. And then once you establish and identify that comes back to creativity, where the creativity can really flow. Like, we knew how we wanted our brand to show up. She knew very well how she wanted her brand to show up. Yeah. And then we put the teams together and allow the magic to happen, and you get things like this.
They told her it was a man's world. They said whiskey wasn't her drink. But taste evolves. And so does the company she keeps. And Johnnie Walker always leaves quite the impression. What a good boy.
Fans' best friends. That's great. That's awesome. I mean, there's just so much nuance to it. And I have so many questions around what happens behind the scenes and the team you've built and all the skills and capabilities that are necessary to pull this off. I do want to just give everybody here a chance to ask some quick questions. So I think we have mic runners. Yes? No? Or you could just stand up.
No.
In the meantime, I'll just ask really quickly on that point about talent. Again, this is a conversation for another day, but just headline of how you make sure that everything you have built internally is going to be so responsive to the nuance to get these things right.
In
the cultural relevance piece and how you're thinking about these collaborations.
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to, you have to have a very clear North Star for the brand, right? And then you have to think about, I go back to the point about, you're not trying to borrow or steal or follow culture. You have to collaborate with the right partners that you can, build it together and shape kind of culture. And I think that's been something, again, very
all
hard
the
to do.
internal conversations.
But all the internal conversations are around that. It's like, how does it making sure that this is true to the brand, through to keep walking, but then why is this partnership the right partnership at this time too? There is a time component that I think is really key.
Totally.
This as well.
Questions? Right here.
The creative you've shown is fantastic. And so I almost hesitate to ask this question. You mentioned the conversations that one of those campaigns generated and the new drinkers that were introduced to the brand. Talk a little bit about how you keep the bean counters at bay as you develop this work.
I love that question. Look, I think on the one hand, we're a little fortunate. I'm fortunate to work at a company like Diageo that understands the power of brand building and brands. Johnnie Walker and Guinness are two of the biggest brands globally in the world of spirits and alcohol. So I think there is an implicit understanding of the need for brand building to differentiate and drive value. That said, any good marketer will tell you've got to keep one eye on the short term and one eye on the long term. So I think this is about how do we both bring excitement and new consumers into the brand, but also make sure that there is what we would call a commercial runway to kind of bringing that to life. You have to be really thinking about sort of an end-to-end approach. It's not, this is, I shared snippets here, but this is a 2-year collaboration with Sabrina Carpenter. The first part of it is, what we shared, but we're doing special serves. She has a go-go highball and a Sabrina sour and a Manhattan's best friend. And we'll bring those serves into bars and also into liquor stores. And I think that's where you've got to make sure internally you are talking with your partners, because this is a real cross-functional effort. And I think that's where you start to build, momentum and share not just sort of the brand buzz and excitement that we've got, but how does that then translate into, commercially how you're driving sales.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, so I'm going to have to stop there. But Josh, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really fascinating conversation.
That was a conversation recorded live at an Adweek event. You can find more coverage, analysis, and interviews from across the marketing and media world at adweek.com. Thanks for listening to Adspeak. If you like the show, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.